Hello, America. I want to talk to you about some things that I don't think anybody else is going to talk to you about. And maybe this is all wrong, but I don't think it is. And it'll be called a conspiracy theory and everything else, because that's what happened last time. Back in 2019, 2020, I was one of the first people to tell you about something called the Great Reset. That was being planned. Remember, it's a giant conspiracy theory. Oh, la, 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 la. Now it's absolutely known that is exactly what was going on. The progressives found the perfect opportunity, due to the pandemic, to merge the elites and their corporate conglomerates with the governments and try to seize control. A new world order was being planned, and it was supposed to happen by 2030. This is a place where the top 1% would reshape the global society, and every lever was being pulled to see it all through. Green energy was the enforcement tool. It was the climate change was the big scary thing, and they used that to leverage the banks and the financial system to pull absolutely everybody in. And mechanisms like open borders, strained, already weak, social economic fabrics. They were channeling Cloward and Piven. National, state, and local governments were pushed into a situation where it was overwhelming and collapsing the system. That's Cloward and Piven. Systems like the U.S. economy, that were once considered too big to fail, were now being forced to fail. They were being forced into default through unsustainable spending and debt increases. It is actually a brilliant system if you believe the world's going to come undone anyway. So, and you're a little bit evil, let's design something where we can all profit, screw the little people, but we'll all profit, we'll be fine. And let's maybe just kind of ease it into collapse so it'll fall right into our hands. The progressives of the 21st century and the fascists, this is what they've been working on for a very, very, very long time. A global financial restructuring of everything. Everything was about to change, and everything is still about to change. If you're watching this show right now, the chances are high that you will feel the initial impacts of what is about to happen. And everyone, I feel, has a sense in their gut, trouble is still coming. I don't care if you were for Donald Trump or strongly against Donald Trump. It's funny because people, I mean, this show is really based on something, an exchange I had with one of my family members who wrote to me and said, you know, Uncle Glenn, I'm telling you, he's going to kill us all. So it's all going to collapse. And I'm like, yeah, it might collapse. But I can promise you it's not because of him. It is going to collapse because of what we've done. Now, do we get through it, or do we reset into something that you and I both don't want to be in? And I don't think people really understand that. If we are successful, we will get through it. But you have to look at what is being done on both sides with a different set of eyes, or glasses, if you will. Because if we are not successful, we risk, well, let me take some quotes from some of the economic models that I've been running for this show. We took 3 different AIs and we ran and asked the same questions, put in the same numbers, et cetera, and they all came back, which was a little spooky, with not only the same answers, but the same dates on when things were going to happen if everything stays the same. And here's what they said. Success depends on rapid execution and global cooperation. Well, now just think of Congress. Think about how fast things are trying to be done, but how many things are being stopped and slowed down, and then think global cooperation. Now, it's funny because it seems like yesterday, so much was done on global cooperation. Over the weekend, so much was done by Donald Trump on the global scale, but it's not being done with Europe, strangely. More on that later on in the program. Here's another quote. Without action, the United States faces a financial disaster, losing its economic and geopolitical edge. Quote, if the U.S. debt reaches 180% of gross domestic product, there is a 50% chance the dollar loses its status as the global reserve currency. That would be very, very bad. Let me give you that last one a little more context. Our current debt to GDP is 124%. Never been there. That's really bad. Now, over the past 5 years, we have averaged around a 1% increase every quarter. So we're going up 4 or 5 points every year. Keep this in mind, because this data includes the pandemic years, but it also shows how global catastrophes will skew this closer and closer to that 180% point of economic explosion. And if the dollar loses its reserve status, the ramifications to you are huge. Here are just a few of the ramifications. Inflation would spike to unbelievable levels. You'll see a 5 to 10% loss in GDP. Imagine having a negative 10% GDP. Our debt crisis would explode with no way to buy our way out of it. Nobody is going to be loaning us any money. We won't have any business. We will default. You think the rest of the world's going to be happy about that? We would also see a major supply disruption for goods, and it will lower our living standards. Think of Venezuela. We would be looking to 10 to maybe 20% cost of living increase, bare minimum. Household income would fall $5,000 to $10,000 per year. So prices are going way up. Your salary is coming way down. Then you consider the foreclosures, the defaults, the banks that will go belly up. In other words, you are looking at financial Armageddon. You are looking at something far worse than the Great Depression. And that's the rosy, optimistic. Let me just say this. All of what I'm going to show you, they're without anything bad going wrong. Okay? There's no emergencies. There's no war. Taiwan stays Taiwan. China doesn't come in. There's no war in the Middle East. Nothing. And that is their prediction, with nothing going wrong. Now, these are not my numbers that I cherry-picked. This is actual debt and spending numbers that everyone has had access to, has access to. But for some reason, the elites will pretend it doesn't exist, and nobody on television or in the media will really explain it to the average person. The models pick 2 big deciding factors for causing all of this. Over the $33 trillion in U.S. debt, and see if this sounds familiar, and trade deficits. One is the debt. The second is our trade deficit. And let me come back to that second one in a minute. If nothing changes, if our debt continues to grow and our trade deficits continue, the models show that our probabilities over the next 20 years, by 2023, in just 5 years, 2030, the dollar has a 5% chance of losing its reserve currency status. Okay? That would kick off financial Armageddon, as I described. If a crisis happens like China invading Taiwan, or another pandemic, or another debt crisis, that probability goes to 15% by 2030. Now, it's really odd. Actually, it's not, but it's odd if you look at this. We gave the same information to all 3 models, and they all picked 2030 as a major milestone. The reason why I thought that was odd is because they pegged the same year that was pegged by the UN, the Paris Accord, the World Economic Forum, for the culmination of their Great Reset, Agenda 2030. All of it is pegged to 2030. So when our models, 3 of them, came back with 2030, it wasn't that odd, because they're looking at the same economic numbers that we have, that you have, and they see what's coming. And a 15% probability of complete economic carnage is way too high in financial circles. But it gets worse than that. This is, again, with nothing happening. By 2035, the base number for economic reset, if everything stays as it is 15%. U.S. debt to GDP is projected to be at 140%. If BRICS continues to de-dollarize and set up its own reserve currency, the probability of us in financial Armageddon goes to 25%. That's if the only thing that happens is BRICS de-dollarizes, continues to de-dollarize. Now, if a major event happens, a war, pandemic, the probability is now up to 35%. By 2040, the base probability, with everything perfect, is 30%. But the United States is paying $1 trillion a year just on its debt payments. Not then, right now. It's actually $1.1 trillion. China's yuan now accounts for 15% of global reserves. A major global crisis or event pushes the probability to 50%. So it's a coin toss. That's 2040, just 15 years away. By 2045, the coin toss is 50%. That becomes the base probability. Debt to GDP is now 180%. BRICS trade accounts for half of the global trade. The United States faces a real problem of default. So if the probability rises to 70%, that's where it'll be. Now, this isn't the usual conservative rhetoric of, oh, we got to reduce spending and cut taxes, blah, 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 and we're not going to do any of it. This is catastrophic if we do not do something. That's the framework that I tried to lay out for my relative the other day. You may not like what the president is doing, but you don't understand that one side has planned a great reset, an exit, because these numbers, no matter who searches and looks for them and looks at them, everyone will come up with exactly the same answer. This is over soon. So one side says, oh, no, we're not doing anything, but they are. They're planning a great reset. And I don't like that outcome. I don't like what they have planned. And if you would stop saying it's a conspiracy theory and actually look into it, you wouldn't like it either, because it doesn't provide freedom. Donald Trump is trying something that actually gives you freedom. Will it work? I don't know. But the probability is not good if we do nothing. Now, let me show you something. This is from Zero Hedge. It shows the top expenditures by the federal government. We lead the world in defense spending, and it's not even close. But we are now spending more on interest for our debt, on interest, than we are spending on defense. Interest on our debt now is the second highest thing we spend money on, and it's rising. See the green? That's interest. The first one here is Social Security. We are $300 billion away from being tied with Social Security. This is the pinnacle of the words unsustainable. And the history is very, very clear. It's happened to nations before. When this happens, it's just math. The historian Neil Ferguson laid the brutal reality out really well just recently. He said, any great power that spends more on debt service than defense will not stay great for very long. It's true of Habsburg Spain, true of ancient France, true of the Ottoman Empire, true of the British Empire. And this law is about to be put to the test by the U.S. beginning this year, end quote. So why have they been so intent on the Great Reset? Not because they're evil, although I think many of them are at the WEF, not because they're evil, but because they know the truth that something has to change, that a financial reset is coming. It is time for everyone, not the elites on either side, but every American to understand that it is coming, no matter what happens. Now, what do we do to get through it? Not to avoid it, because that's not going to happen. How do we get through it? Now, this sounds pretty grim, but the models that I've been running all point to a specific way, and not out of it, maybe possibly out of it, but highly doubtful, but through it. Quote, this is what they say. Export gains and onshoring offer long-term hope, but the transition would be painful, taking 5 to 10 years. Success depends on rapid execution. So what are they talking about? See if this sounds familiar. Increasing U.S. exports and onshoring. So that means we have to make more things here. Which plan does that sound like? All three models came up with that. For everything the Trump administration is trying to explain what's happening with tariffs and the economy, I mean, I have few concerns. I have hashed this out with the president I don't know how many times. I've argued with him on this. And he's actually listened to me and then said, I'm going to do it because I think you're wrong. The biggest problem is how this is being sold. The best explanation on this, I want you to listen to this, is from Treasury Secretary Bessent. It might be the closest I've heard to an overall explanation that everybody can understand. Listen.
What I've been talking about is reprivatizing the economy. So on one side, we're going to be bringing down government spending, which has been crowding out the private sector. We're also going to be shedding excess labor on the government side. Then on the other side, we have a substantial financial deregulatory agenda coming from, we put a lot of new regulators in place so the private sector can re-leverage, and we're putting a special focus on community banks, small regional banks, which were very near what I would call an extinction event.
Before I comment on this, let me just explain this one thing. The United States, the whole Western world, is the Titanic. We have hit the iceberg. Some people are saying, let the boat sink, and if we lose some people, we lose some people, because we'll have another boat come pick us up, okay? Others are saying, no, wait, can we patch it up? I don't know what the arguments are, but they're two different arguments, okay? And then there's the argument that is happening from most Americans, and that is, we're not going to sink. We're not going to sink. I don't care which side you choose. The ship has hit the iceberg. We are taking on water. If we don't do one of the two, we are all going to die. We have to do one of the two. Now, what did he just say? He said we have to reprivatize, meaning we have to take these giant banks. Remember when they said they were too big to fail? We have to stop with that. We have to reprivatize, empower small banks and small business, shred spending, then use tariffs, tax cuts, deregulation to jumpstart the change, to get it to happen quickly. A change or a reset is coming regardless. The question now is, how do we endure it and come out better and stronger than ever? I have always believed the Titanic is going down, so get everyone into a lifeboat, because that's where the real capital is. We can build other ships. We know how to do it. Get everyone into a lifeboat. Notice they're not talking about big global things. They are talking about reprivatization and making local banks local again. They're saying everyone get into a lifeboat, the closest one to you. As I said, I have my own reservations on tariffs. I've talked to my friends and family members that are also very worried about it because they have small businesses. I come from an entrepreneurial kind of family, and they don't see how they're going to survive. I'm a small business owner. I own a couple of small businesses. I have exactly the same worries. And I pray there is another way to get through all of this. But the solution from the Trump administration is the only one besides we're going to be one global spooky ass, government that rules the whole world against China, or Trump saying, no, let's preserve our ideals and our principles, and let's restart it and give people a chance as individuals. Those are your two choices. I like that one. You may like the other one, but that's what we should be arguing about. Do you remember the warnings from the economic models that I just ran? And do you remember the solution? Export gains and onshoring. How else do you do that without tariffs? How do they fix trade imbalances that further exacerbate and hasten the collapse? Look at our current and most dangerous trade imbalances. This is going to blow your mind. These are the top 10 goods that we rely on to both survive and operate as a modern nation. These are the top 10. The top 4 are all over 90% reliance on other countries. Look at this. 100% import reliance on gallium, semiconductors, LEDs, solar cells, defense systems, radars, missiles. 100%. We're not finding any of it here. We're not even looking or refining it here. Graphite, 100% import reliance. EV batteries, steel making, defense, missile components. 3, rare earth elements, 95% import reliance, magnets for EVs, wind turbines, missiles, electronics. Number 4, pharmaceuticals, 80 to 90% import reliance for APIs, antibiotics, heart, cancer drugs, generics. That is unsustainable. Unsustainable. When you have the facts and all programs are saying the same thing, global disruption is coming. You don't want to have to rely on a boat on the other side of the world to bring your medicine. Why do you think he has been talking such tough talk on Greenland? And what deal did he just make in Ukraine? Rare earth minerals. Why? Because we don't survive without them if there is a collapse. And if there's a major global shock, it only gets much worse. This is why I say you have to, and my opinion has changed on so many things as I got deeper into understanding what this is. I have always been against tariffs, always, and I still kind of am. But I'm understanding why he's doing it. I understand why things have to happen so quickly, and it's not about the next election. It's about making sure there is a next election, not because of any other party, but because the country could collapse. And if we don't do anything and do it quickly, the country will collapse. No questions asked. Now, Donald Trump is attempting to navigate the next big reset of the global economy. But this is something that has happened multiple times in our history. And every single time, we have taken the steps toward the calamity that we now face. We never made it better. I'm going to show you this when we come back. I'll take you behind the scenes of how the Trump administration's global pressure campaign is playing out. And it might surprise you next. All right, I want to tell you about preborn. I was just having a conversation before I came on with some donors of preborn and Dan Steiner, and we were talking about, ever since Roe versus Wade, it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. And the reason why is because now you have the abortion drug that is coming across in your mail. Now, maybe your daughter, the next door neighbor's daughter, is taking that abortion pill, being assured by people that it's no big deal, and they're taking that pill, and they're delivering an actual child, whether it's this size or this size. They're delivering the child in their bathroom without anybody knowing it. And the baby is coming out dead, and they're having now people come with a towel and a baby's body in it, and the girls are crying and saying, I don't know what to do with it. This is evil. It's absolutely evil. And any other drug that had the kind of testing on it now that we're seeing, because now we're just testing it on girls, anything that would come back and show this kind of complication, you would never, ever allow that drug to be given out to the public, ever. But for some reason, we don't seem to mind. We are in a death cult. You want to stand against the death cult? Every stand you make right now is going to be so important for the future. We are charting our course. I would like to invite you to be a part of the answer to this, and it's preborn. Through love, through compassion, through an ultrasound, you empower the mother to choose life, and then you're there for them after the baby. We don't just care about the baby, we care about the mom too. Tax-deductible donation of $28, if you can do it monthly, would be great, but it is reaching eternity. To get involved, just dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. It's pound 250 keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Glenn. That's preborn.com/Glenn. I want you to know, I understand we are playing a very, very dangerous game. And people are like, he's just risking. Well, no. You're risking everything by not understanding and doing something about it. So what is he doing? Well, trade deficits, that's going to kill us. Well, word came out on Monday morning that the United States and China had agreed to slash tariffs for 90 days. Now, this is a good start, but keep in mind what the models have to say we have to do in order to weather the storm that is coming. We have to onshore, we have to bring jobs back here, and we need to increase exports. How are we going to do that? How do you do that with people that make a lot of money like they do in the United States? We'll tell you in a minute. But it has to begin right now. We are in the era of build, baby, build. And it all has to get done somehow with massive spending cuts, deregulation, and debt reduction. Now, if you can accomplish that all without tariffs, I'm on board. And I'll be the first one in line to preach about it and push for it. But as I showed you earlier, our debt, trade deficits, offshoring, it's hastening the downfall of both the dollar and our entire standard of living in our country in the end. Now, these are the top 10 countries that we have large trade deficit with. China, $295 billion. Mexico, I mean, you can read these. It's pretty bad. India has $45 billion. China is still the worst, but it was over $419 billion before Trump's first term. Now, I wish I could say that things appear to be getting better, but most of those companies didn't come back home. They shifted to Mexico and Vietnam. Our trade deficit with Mexico was $70 billion at the start of Trump's first term. It's now over $172 billion. That's why he's putting tariffs on Mexico. It's not just the border. They can't leave China and go there. It's similar with Vietnam, $38 billion in 2017, now $123 billion. It's not sustainable. The same thing happened to the greatest empire of the world at the end of the 18th century, and that country was China. The result was two wars, the Great Opium Wars, and it had everything to do with trade deficits. China have a name for that era. They call it the century of humiliation. Now, this is not economic jingoistic mumbo-jumbo. Too many dollars going out, not enough money coming in, breaks empires. And it has happened that way over and over and over again. Speaking of China, a 90-day truce has been called, slashing tariffs for 3 months while we work on an agreement. Now, are the Chinese blinking? Let me show you what's actually happening in the lead up to China when they come to the table. You ready? Chinese factory activity tumbled to a 16-month low as tariffs shattered exports from China. The 6 largest banks in China reported a $1 billion profit drop. Unsustainable. Chinese workers now have begun protesting in China over unpaid wages because they can't pay anybody because nothing's coming in. The pressure is actually working. China had no choice but to come to the table. That's what the president said, and it works out. Now, did you see how China made preparations before meeting with the Trump administration over the weekend? Their central bank lowered rates and injected liquidity into their system. What did our Fed do? Jerome Powell? Nothing. They kept the rates the same and then yelled stagflation like Chicken Little. One side is trying to win this. I think there are too many people on the other side that are sabotaging because they believe in the Great Reset the other way. The global financial system is headed towards a major reset, and we need to become the smartest people in the room when this subject comes up. That means you and me. We need to be watching things like treasury yields. Oh my gosh, does that sound boring? We need to be watching gold prices. We need to be watching what products are actually coming back home and which ones are running to places like India, Mexico, and Vietnam. But we also need to understand how we got here in the first place. The global economic system has undergone multiple great resets all throughout history. And every time one happens, we take a step closer to the dumpster fire that we are currently standing in. Let me take you to the chalkboard in just a minute. All right, let me tell you about Patriot Mobile. Every dollar you spend either supports something that you like, or it works against your values. In today's economy, where you spend your money actually matters. It's how we take the country back. Patriot Mobile is leading the way as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. You switch today without sacrificing any quality or service, and you'll get exceptional nationwide coverage because, unlike most, budget providers, Patriot Mobile uses all three major U.S. networks. They can even, add two numbers on two different networks on one phone, something that even the big guys can't do. So stay connected with flexible, unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, device protection, and internet backup. Best of all, switching to Patriot Mobile supports faith, family, all of the amendments, our Constitution. I mean, it is a really good group of people. That's why I want you to support Patriot Mobile. This is where you belong. They'll make switching absolutely easy. You can keep your number, get a new one. You can keep your phone, get an upgrade, whatever. Patriot Mobile's 100% U.S.-based team will activate you in minutes. And right now, go to patriotmobile.com/Beck or call 972-PATRIOT, and you'll get a free month of service with the promo code Beck. Free month of service, save money, support your values. It's patriotmobile.com/Beck or call 972-PATRIOT. We start now with the deep dive into the biggest financial con game in history. I don't know when they figured it out, but they know now. It's a long story, but all throughout history, there have been multiple economic great resets that have pushed us to the edge of financial cliff, and it explains exactly how we're at the place we are now. From Bretton Woods to the World Economic Forum, the latest scheme, every step has been deliberate to move control of your money, your freedom, your future. Okay. Now, here's the potential good news. We're at a crossroads right now, and the Trump administration is the only one that is recognizing this and giving an option. It might be the last hope for a real great reset, one that doesn't enslave you like the one pushed by the UN, Davos, and progressives, but one that will put you back in charge. So let me just show you the history. 1944. We come out of the war, 45, and everything is fantastic. I mean, America rules the world now, and everybody had sent us their gold during the war because they needed our armaments, they needed our planes and everything else. So we're sitting on a giant pile of gold, and we decided to tell the rest of the world, cash is king. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep all the gold, but we will give you cash if you base your whole economy on the U.S. dollar. So it was $35 per ounce tied to gold. All currencies were pegged to the dollar. We printed money, and we ran trade deficits, and we started to bleed gold because some countries were demanding that they had gold, and we were also selling gold, and it got to be really bad towards the end around 1971. In fact, got so bad. Did you even know that France had a navy? France sends their navy, their warships, to the harbor of New York City, and they're like, give us our gold. And we're like, that's funny, you and a warship. But we actually gave them their gold because they demanded, because Nixon, it's called the Nixon shock, Nixon in 1971 decides Bretton Woods no longer works. Why? Because we wanted money for the Great Society, and we wanted the money for the Great War and that war machine. So we decided we're gonna have everybody's currency float here. It's not going to be on gold. Well, that's when everybody was like, oh, we will get our gold because your money is going to be worth doggy poo-poo. And so we knew that it was over. The game was over. That's why we went to the Saudis and said, hey, would you guys peg oil to the dollar and make sure everybody has to have a dollar to buy oil? And they said, sure. It's going to come with some strings that you're not going to like later. But we started printing money. We had huge deficits, and we were chained now to debt. Then the collapse comes 2008 to 2014, the great collapse and quantitative easing. What is that? Money printing. No, we'll never print money. Yeah, well, you did. You just digitized it. Money printing, debt, trade imbalances. Now look at this. So what happens? Printing money, trade deficits, huge deficits, trade imbalances. You see what all of the negatives, they're all building to one thing, where we're at now. Then COVID and the WEF, they had already put into plan by 2016, 2017. They were working hard on the Great Reset. So we came up with stakeholder capitalism, not shareholder, stakeholder. If you don't understand this, just go read one of my books on the Great Reset. But they were tying all of this, not to this problem. They were saying we had to have a Great Reset because the sky is going to be set on fire and all our trees will drown along with us in that fire because of global warming or whatever. They were using this instead of telling you the truth. And they were pushing towards digital currencies, debt, trade deficits, and serfdom. Okay, now here we are at the new era. To solve this, what did I tell you earlier we needed? Trade imbalances, we need to stop that. Debt at 36 trillion, we have to stop that. Fed manipulation, we got to stop that. And dollar needs to reign supreme. Okay, so this is really where we're at this point. The things that have happened over the last 80 years, 90 years, two things took a major steroid shot: debt and trade imbalances. Okay? This has to change. It's a new era right now. A Great Reset is coming. And we have a real shot to deliver a Great Reset, the one that I think, and honestly, if we weren't playing politics all the time, I think everybody would say that's the one we deserve. The one that puts the people in charge, not these elites, okay? The one that puts America first. I want you to put your country first, but we have to put ours first because we have to downsize and make sure everything is local. So we have to solve four big issues. And the models show that trade imbalances and debt will rapidly contribute to the economic Armageddon. Trade imbalances have to be addressed. Has nothing to do with jingoism and pride. We have to solve this. The debt crisis, $36 trillion and growing. What is Congress doing? Nothing. The manipulations from the Federal Reserve have got to be fixed. I don't know how this is ever going to happen, but we don't survive another 2008-2014 QE bonanza. We just don't. And the dollar has to be reigning supreme. This means the dollar that is currently operating, it operates strategically, not based off of massive money printing, or fueling inflation, trade deficits, but off of strength and actual value. Now, this is what we have a real shot of accomplishing now, but we have to be the smartest people in the room when this comes up. We want the smartest people in the room, and I think we have them in Washington, right? Working on this, and I don't include Capitol Hill as that, but we need the smartest people. But we have to be we have to be able to explain this to our friends and defend it. We have to be able to demand this and be able to explain it to our friends and neighbors so they can demand it. And when the dust settles, hopefully, we will come out better on the other side. Now, how do we do some of this? Because it's going to cost. How do we get companies to come back here? And with AI, isn't that going to kill a lot of jobs? How do we do this? Oh, I think we have an answer for you. Back in a minute. I mean, I hate to do this commercial, because I think this show has been a little frightening for some, and I don't want to look like, hey, you should get into your bunker. But I mean, maybe you should. With everything that's going on, let's just take fires and windstorms, power outages. My house was hit by lightning a week ago, and we just got things working again. I mean, no matter what it is, there's always something that goes wrong. I want you to consider getting something called the Grid Doctor from My Patriot Supply. Grid Doctor 3300. This is a game changer. It's the only solar generator with built-in EMP protection, and it has the power to run your fridge, medical devices, lights, you name it. I would have plugged my freezer into the Grid Doctor had I been there when the lightning struck. Unfortunately, I got there a few days later. I was on vacation and everything was melted. So that was great. Look, it is quiet, it is fume-free, it is safe to use indoors or out, totally portable. And in a world where the grid becomes less and less reliable by the day, and with just the stuff that happens in everyday life, the Grid Doctor 3300 will give you peace of mind and practical everyday use. You can get yours at mypatriotsupply.com. Again, mypatriotsupply.com, America's trusted source for emergency preparedness. Joining me now is the president of Our Republic and editor-in-chief of StoppingSocialism.com. He is also my co-author, multiple books with me, The Great Reset, Dark Future, and Propaganda Wars, Justin Haskins. And thank you so much for dressing up.
Oh, I actually bought this shirt specifically. Well, I dress as I feel. It's a mood outfit, so grays and black.
So let's go through this because we have AI coming, and the president, I mean, he told me he was building nuclear power plants or allowing these companies to build nuclear power plants because the energy we need is off the charts. Kind of makes the whole, green, idea kind of go out the window.
Right.
And then with AI, we also know that's going to cut all kinds of jobs. But we need to make things here. We also have to not pay a bunch of people a lot of money. I mean, how does this work out? How do we make things here in America and what? Not pay them living wages? What's going to happen?
This is the most remarkable opportunity in history of human civilization. I really believe that. You have massive advancements in artificial intelligence. You have a president who wants to go all in on affordable energy that makes artificial intelligence possible. Artificial intelligence makes automation and supply chain logistics much better and more affordable.
Which puts people out of work.
Well, it puts some people out of work, but what it does is allows us to manufacture things at a much more affordable rate than we were previously able to do it. Historically, manufacturing costs are largely based on what? On humans. How much does it cost to pay people?
Right.
And so in places where they don't pay people a lot of money, you can manufacture things. Well, now those places like China are leading the world in automation. See, they're turning to machines to produce things.
Because they could just take people out to rice paddies and shoot them in the head. We can't.
Well, that's true.
Right.
But they can produce things now in China. They are doing it cheaper than it costs them for their cheap human laborers. So that means we can produce that same thing because there's no reason why China can do it. We can't do it too.
So then what happens to the people here who should have those jobs?
Right. So this is the genius of all of this. We are the largest consumer economy in the world by far.
Right.
If we can produce the things that we're consuming, we are keeping trillions of dollars of wealth in the United States. We buy $3 trillion worth of goods from other countries and import them. If we can make a lot of that here, that wealth stays here. It circulates around the economy. It produces significantly more economic sectors, other jobs, other opportunities. That wealth is going to go somewhere. That's how capitalism and free markets work. In addition to that, we have to build huge amounts of AI infrastructure. We have to build huge amounts of new manufacturing facilities. We have to then maintain them. In the automated facilities that they have in China, they still have humans working there. They're maintaining the machines. They're building building infrastructure. We're going to have all of that here in the United States.
So I said to my nephew, he said, Uncle Glenn, I listen to you. And you terrify me. And AI, what jobs in the future? And he wanted to go and start being a welder, get his license. And I said, perfect. Agreed. Because of the power plants that are going to be needed to be, welders are going to be in short supply everywhere. So there are these things for, maybe 5 to 10, 15 years, enormous amounts of building, which leads to a lot of construction jobs. Right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, massive facilities have to be built for not just the AI infrastructure, but for all of these power plants, the transmission lines that you need to do. There's huge amounts of opportunity here. Plus, there's going to be excess capital because we're not sending it overseas. We're keeping it here, and that's going to create more investment in the United States, which means more jobs.
You listen to the show, right? When you're sitting here listening?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, I was here. I don't know if I was listening,
okay.
But
well, here's what I wanted to ask. Do you buy into what I'm saying about how Trump is seeing what is coming, and all the models would show you that? I mean, if he asked for, hey, show me the models of, how this works out, it would show him the same thing. We did it with 3 different AIs, and it all came back the same way. At the same time, the Great Reset is kind of falling apart. Do you agree, first of all, with how I'm reading the room with Donald Trump and what's happening?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think the odds are that we make it? I mean, well, let me rephrase it first. What the WEF looks like the whole Great Reset is falling apart. I don't believe that for a second. There are trillions of dollars. That's why I think we talked on radio today. Canada's prime minister, quickly, just recap. Who's the Canadian prime minister now?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the architects of the Great Reset. He's United Nations, one of the leaders of the Glasgow Financial Alliance of Net Zero.
Well, not one of the leaders.
Well, he's
it was
founded
his
it, right?
deal.
It was his deal. He ran it. He's a big central banker, wants to get the dollar as the U.S. As the global reserve currency, right? And replace it with some other digital currency. This is not a fan of the United States.
That's what brings me to an understanding of how you look now at what's happening in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. I think the president understands NATO. We can say we're allies, but we're really not, because you're all going still for this Great Reset. You're rejecting your own people, your own traditions. Canada, I don't think Canadians understand who their new prime minister is, but he's not a friend of ours. Yes. So maybe go to Saudi Arabia and say, hey, let's lock up our friendship here. And, that gives us leverage. If things collapse in Europe, that's going to be a Muslim continent. Maybe Saudi Arabia, we could go and say, hey, can you help? Can you calm things down a bit? Maybe they would. But also, if we're negotiating with the World Economic Forum people, it's good to have Saudi Arabia on your side going, yeah, you're not going to get the oil from us. You're not going to get it from them.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Look, this is really important. Over the last 5 years or so, we talked about this a lot. The sort of two spheres of power developed. You had BRICS starting to develop with Russia, China, and all of these sort of allies, authoritarian nationalists. And then you had the Great Reset people. And Joe Biden was part of that, and America was part of it because of that, and then you had all of Europe really as part of that as well. And that was it. Those were our two choices. Now I think what's happening is a third choice is emerging. A third group of countries can come together around a completely different way of doing things. I think that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's trying to distance us from Europe because Europe doesn't have our values. This idea that Europe and America are the best of friends, not really, not unless we do things their way. And that's not what Donald Trump wants. So I think he's looking for allies. I think he's looking for economic partners. I think he's looking for people who are going to say, okay, look, we're focused on, we're not going to try to impose our values on each other. We're going to work together to build a new world that is not like what they're trying to do with BRICS, which is authoritarianism, and it's not like what you're seeing in Europe, which is a modern version of fascism.
It's more, be proud of your own country, take care of your own self, and let's share.
Technology,
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. We'll have more on this tomorrow and in the coming weeks, of course, as we watch this all unfold. But right now, from Dallas, good night, America.